I am Thomas Cole, retired supply sergeant, 66, steady hands by training. I keep a flip-open pocket watch on the entry table and wind it nightly. The clicks calm me like roll call. My mornings run by lists on a yellow pad, lines squared by habit, and the house answers with quiet compliance until family enters. Today begins with coffee to the gram, windows cracked, and a quick porch check. The watch catches hallway light. The rooms feel smaller lately, as if furniture shifted when I blinked, so I focus on tasks I can finish. Lawn sprinklers cycle, gutters clear, porch light works, receipts stay clipped. Filing bills, I catch a folded statement and a buried charge from a pet supply store. I circle it and move on, noting the checkbook balance until my pulse slows. My daughter Lauren texts with casual urgency about expenses and fairness. Her husband Dane adds jokes that land like elbows. Ellen, my wife, tries to smooth the thread. The chat moves fast, then slows when I ask for a plan. I keep to numbers, dates, responsibilities. Replies narrow, each shifting duty elsewhere. I scrub the sink to keep cadence, swap the fridge filter, and straighten the calendar. Passing the mantel, I level the family photo, Lauren smiling with the grandkids, and feel my chest tighten. Last week they called my caution stingy and my structure controlling, then asked for more. That night I erased one transfer with a tremor and slept badly. In the garage, a carpenter's square and chalk line reset my breathing. I toss a skinned paint can, settle at the bench, then the phone buzzes. Sunny brunch photos I'm not invited to. Dane's captions about hustle and loyalty. Ellen asks about breakfast. I circle another line on the pad and check the mailbox twice. Confirming absence, not expecting anything. Routine keeps me decent when respect thins. In the hallway mirror, I look square but smaller. I correct posture and roll my shoulders. I draft a simple budget: groceries, utilities, insurance, gifts, and mark a discretionary line that has fed too many emergencies. I underline it and slide the page under my brass keyring. The group chat dings for immediate help. Lauren says bills stack fast. Waiting is cruel. I owe presents. Dane drops a meme about tough love. I answer with dates, options, repayment terms. My text is read and ignored. I log the time and place the phone face down. Fingers steady by habit when emotions spike. I eat, rinse the plate, and set the watch open by the sink. Seconds walking, like careful men. Orders mattered once. Edges mattered. Even quiet mattered because quiet hides movement, and movement is what I watch for now. After dinner, I polish the watch. Ellen checks the window and says the neighborhood feels jumpy. I nod and file towels like stacked flags. Numbers behave. People don't. Self-doubt ambushes me with a picture of Lauren at 8, handing me screws while I fixed cupboard hinges. The memory clicks shut when a new request lands. I ask for timing, collateral, realistic commitments. The bubble appears, disappears, appears, then dies. I nudge the thermostat back to the chart, clear the living room for morning light, stack the mail, and pause again on that pet store receipt, its ink smudged like damp fingers. I press it flat and do not speculate. Anxiety returns. I pour chamomile for Ellen and water for myself. Laughter drifts from a backyard. Families can be loud without being cruel. On the porch, I rock the third board and add wood screws to tomorrow's list. Street lights come on. A delivery hum fades. I check doors, windows, and the garage latch, test the deadbolt twice, set the phone to do not disturb, and lay the pen beside it. Ellen thanks me for the rounds. I nod. My voice has thinned enough. A late text from Lauren arrives, tagged urgent and shorter than usual, framing need as love, timelines as emergencies, refusal as betrayal. My neck flushes, then cools. Breath finds rhythm, fingers steady. I draft a reply asking for a plan and accountable milestones. The bubble flickers and freezes at read. I lock the screen, slide the pocket watch beside the pad, and feel the house settle with low duct sighs as an engine slows at the corner and the rooms pull inward, by inches. Enough. I leave the reply unsent, stand in the dark hallway, and wait. Father's Day arrives quiet and blue, the street slow as a Sunday. I water the porch ferns and check the gutters by reflex. The house holds steady. A light breeze lifts the mailbox flag slightly. A truck engine hums closer and stops with a practiced, efficient idle. The driver confirms my name and hands me a medium, surprisingly light box. I sign, note the time, and feel my neck flush without reason. The label looks generic. No return address, only codes and printed routing. And the cardboard carries tiny punctures in a tidy, deliberate pattern near seams. Ellen dries her hands and studies the corners with narrowed, careful eyes. She suggests patience while I shift the box onto the coffee table. My breath shortens, fingers steady by habit. I scan for more unusual marks. The weight slides a fraction inside, like something distributing itself after travel. A soft scrape answers the room and stops as if listening back. I step to the hallway and retrieve the small notepad from the drawer. The page receives the arrival time, carrier number, and that odd shifting sound. However, the room changes when a faint hiss threads the quiet like wire. Ellen backs 2 steps without turning, eyes locked on the punctured seams. I do not touch the box again. I call the non-emergency number immediately. Training says details first, voice even, posture loose enough for long breaths. I describe the weight, the holes, the sound, the missing return address. The dispatcher asks distance and recommends staying 6 feet away until officers arrive. I write the recommendations down and keep the phone on the table speaker. And I open 2 windows for airflow, not panic, only controlled caution. The hiss returns longer, then stops like a closing valve under pressure. Ellen reaches for my forearm and exhales in small dotted measures. I scan the room for obstacles, then move loose papers from the coffee table. My notepad gains a sketch of the box faces and puncture layout. The seconds stretch wider than usual. The house breathes louder than ducts. A patrol car pulls into our driveway with muted strobes and steady confidence. 2 officers step in with measured strides, eyes making straight lines to corners. They observe the punctures, listen, and exchange short looks that skip reassurance. One radios animal control and anchors us behind the couch arm. However, something colder than fear surfaces when I log their names and times. It is the feeling of being targeted by someone who knows our routines. The room stays orderly, but my skin buzzes like wires under drywall. Animal control arrives with a carrier, a pole, and calm, practiced hands. The handler listens, then slides the lid carefully, then stops and nods once. He lifts a slender, copper-specked snake with coaxing pressure and restraint. He identifies a corn snake, non-venomous, stressed, and dehydrated from transit. He slides it into the carrier and secures the latches with quick clicks. I write the species, the note about stress, and the handler's name. And I log the precise minute the living threat left our house safely. The room exhales. My shoulders unlock. The air loses its metallic edge. The officer asks if I expect a sender and watches my eyes. I answer neutrally that surprises often arrive when boundaries harden around money. He nods like he has seen fathers swallow truth to protect broken branches. He advises documentation and to call again if anything escalates beyond today. My fingers remain steady while I sign their incident form and keep a copy. The door closes behind them, and the house offers the old quiet again. However, quiet changes meaning after danger passes. It becomes a ledger of decisions. I sit, open the notepad, and list each transfer made in recent months. Dates line up with demands I had softened against my better judgment. My neck flares heat when I remember a pet store charge on last month's bill. I retrieve the receipt from the stack and flatten it with a firm palm. The store name reads back like a grin disguised behind ordinary ink. I circle the amount and underline the date, then mark a question beside it. The living room looks intact, yet something intimate has been trespassed deliberately. The calendar near the doorway shows today in green for a family call. I had penciled a video check-in with time windows and an agenda. The plan was respectful, simple, and focused on fair steps and timelines. I text the group a calm update that we will begin on schedule. The thread responds with a sticker, then a vague note about later timing. I ask for a new slot and a brief list of current obligations, and the answer returns with generalities about stress and loyalty and needing patience. I record those words then attach the incident number from the morning visit. The thread goes silent. A typing bubble appears, evaporates, appears, disappears again. My jaw sets. Breath chooses longer routes, shoulders square without conscious thought. I state, in writing, that unannounced deliveries or visits will not be accepted. I add that any surprise items will be refused at the door immediately. The message syncs without acknowledgement. The read receipt lands and blinks. However, a later text slips in, asking if a package arrived this morning. The phrasing behaves like fishing line pulled across shallow stones. I answer with a neutral timestamp and no description of contents. The follow-up pivots to unrelated errands and sentimental reminders about togetherness. I continue to log exchanges, keeping emotion out and structure in. The afternoon stretches. Ellen naps lightly. The house holds a dignified stillness. I clean the coffee stain ring with diluted vinegar and planned circles. The motion steadies me. The table regains its quiet, practical shine. I sit again and list boundary statements I can uphold without exceptions. No cash transfers without receipts and written plans with dates and collateral. No shared accounts beyond the basics we already maintain for the household. No access codes shared or stored near visible surfaces or unlocked drawers. And no new obligations accepted under pressure or during family conflict spikes. I title the page, Boundaries, and let the ink dry like a contract. The phone vibrates with another ask framed as a test of love. I reply with a request for numbers, dates, and payment behaviors, not promises. The answer insists that delay equals disrespect and that urgency defines caring. I breathe once, write exactly what I can do, and set a deadline. The thread returns with silence, then a soft implication that grandparents owe presents. My neck flushes again, then cools as the structure answers for me. I send a firm note that future requests require documents attached before discussion. However, the sun drops and pulls long stripes across the hallway runner. Shadows measure time across the banister like slow, unhurried metronomes. I move through the house and check windows, locks, and the garage latch. The routines reclaim ground that fear tried to seize this morning. I place the incident copy in a folder marked Family Finances and Risks. I add the pet store receipt and my annotated timeline behind the form. The folder clicks shut and slides into the cabinet beside insurance and titles. A message pings from my daughter, announcing a last-minute schedule change tonight. The note suggests pushing our call indefinitely and requesting immediate help anyway. I answer with one calm sentence that offers a morning window for discussion. The response accuses me of coldness while asking for access in the same breath. And I let the accusation lie unanswered, like a hook left in an empty creek. Ellen returns to the room and watches my hands file the last document. She asks if we are safe. I nod and point to the orderly drawer. She touches my shoulder and holds there long enough to lower my pulse. We eat quietly and stack bowls like we always have after long days. The evening breeze lifts the curtain hem and brings cut grass from next door. I wash the sink and leave steel shining, then sit and write again. I list names from today, the handler's comments, and the officer's caution. I add a line for what I will not ignore tomorrow morning. However, anger edges in and tests the fence, looking for an easy gate. I keep it outside for now and strengthen the posts with promise and proof. I decide to pause all discretionary transfers until a plan arrives in writing. I decide to request repayment schedules for prior support, small but serious steps. I decide to route all requests through email, not quick, shifting threads. And I decide to refuse any visit without notice and practical purpose stated. The page ends with those 4 lines and a small checkbox beside each. I close the notebook and slide it under the folder in the cabinet. The living room reclaims its ordinary posture. The air grows simpler again. Yet the image of punctured cardboard keeps returning like a slow tide. The feeling of being played while being thanked for being generous lingers. My breath shortens once more, then steadies as I mark the kitchen calendar. Tomorrow's square receives a single word in small, unshakable letters. Enough. Morning brings a slow burn behind my eyes and a heavy chest. I open the cabinet and pull the folder labeled Family Finances and Risks. The snake incident report rests on top, crisp and undeniable. I add yesterday's notes and date each page with neat block numerals, and I draw a short line under boundaries like a private oath renewed. Coffee goes black and simple. My jaw works while the machine hums. I log into the bank and study the scheduled transfers carefully. Several discretionary payments sit layered under helpful nicknames and forgotten promotional toggles. The utilities look clean. The extras wear friendlier names than their purposes. I pause the gym draft and the car insurance subsidy pending written terms. However, one recurring transfer hides behind a bundled services button I rarely touch. I click through and find a flexible payout labeled Family Wellness Reimbursement. The description reads vague. The amounts climb over months like ivy. I suspend the payout and screenshot the confirmation for the paper trail. Then I phone the bank's fraud desk and request merchant descriptors by item. The representative references policy and asks for patience while tickets route internally. I answer with calm courtesy and the incident number from yesterday's report. He listens longer, then promises a supervisor call within the morning window. I type the time, the name, and the case extension in my notes. My gaze scans the hallway calendar and sets today's blocks like watch springs, and the watch itself rides in my pocket, heavy as a workable truth. Ellen leaves for the market. I offer a list and a ride. She smiles thinly and says she needs air more than help today. I wipe the counter and run the disposal until it smooths its tone. Then I open our shared cloud drive and search receipts by keyword. Pet shows 12 results. 2 match the chain on last month's statement. The invoices display ship to as our address and contact as a familiar number. The number belongs to Dane, verified twice in my contacts from past emergencies. I sit back and let my breath settle while anger knocks politely. However, I call the store and ask for an invoice copy with authorization. The manager confirms purchase via a saved card and offers pickup details. He reads a surname that is mine and a first name that is not. He says the pickup signature looked hurried, left-handed, and a bit smeared. I thank him and request the camera timestamp for my records today. He refuses video, but emails the invoice with the signature bitmap attached. I print the page and clip it beside the incident report and receipts. The shape of the smear resembles the hurried loop Dane sometimes uses. I place no theory beside it. I collect facts like rations against doubt. And I email a brief notice stating that discretionary payments remain paused pending documentation. The message outlines required items, dates, and repayment schedules for prior support. I attach a simple template with boxes for figures rather than feelings. The inbox pings with an automatic reply about busy schedules and compassion. It asks for understanding while requesting immediate short-term relief again today. I respond once, clarifying that relief follows receipts, never the reverse anymore. However, I know written boundaries fail when habits expect exceptions on cue. So I change the front door code and log the new digits securely. I disable the garage keypad and pocket the spare remote from the visor. I collect the hidden key from under the ceramic turtle by the lilies. The brass warms my palm and then cools inside the drawer with insurance. I sit at the workshop bench and square a pile of forms precisely. The bench grain steadies my vision. The carpenter's square kisses the paper's edge. I set the flip-open pocket watch beside the stapler and let it tick. The sound carves a narrow path through drifting anger toward steady thinking. I draft a formal summary called Household Access and Financial Terms, dated today, and I list conditions plainly, each with space for signatures and timelines noted. No access codes shared, no packages accepted without sender disclosed in advance. No funds released without receipts, collateral, and calendar dates agreed beforehand. Prior support acknowledged in writing with quiet, workable repayment schedules attached. Then I include a final line about deliveries and animal control procedures. The language stays dry, careful, and more durable than raised voices. I slide the watch closer and snap it shut to mark the midpoint. The click stands in for every boundary I failed to hold earlier. However, boundaries invite testing, especially when money once moved at a whisper. The supervisor calls and confirms merchant descriptor details and device verifications. He mentions a saved card used through a mobile wallet at the store. The entry shows my card ending digits and a separate device token record. He reads a timestamp 2 hours after a heated thread about immediate help. I thank him and request a mailed letter that confirms the descriptor chain. He agrees and warns that device specifics require a subpoena or formal request. I make a note to ask counsel about that step if needed. I schedule a consultation through the portal and choose the earliest available slot. The appointment lands 2 days from now, 10:30, City Office Corridor, and I print the appointment notice and clip it atop the growing packet. I send my formal summary to Lauren and Dane from a new thread. The subject line reads, "Financial terms and household access, effective immediately." I keep the tone level and the rules consistent with yesterday's notes. I state that help continues when behavior aligns, not when pressure spikes. The message leaves my outbox and lands without the immediate typing bubble. However, a location ping shows their car near a strip mall by the highway. I notice the pattern, but do not chase it with calls or questions. I return to the bench and drill pilot holes in a loose hinge. The act of guiding steel calmly through oak unknots something in me. I breathe and count and wipe the curls into my palm quietly. I reinstall the hinge, test the swing, and accept the clean click. Then I inventory the freezer and write the next 3 dinners on the pad. I choose meals that travel well and keep leftover structure gentle on us. The door camera chimes once, then shows a solicitor leaving business cards. I delete the clip and update the visitor rule page for the household. I add that unannounced visitors will meet a locked door and a voicemail, and I move the family finances and risks folder into the fire-safe cabinet. Ellen returns with groceries and asks if she should avoid the group thread. I say she can answer as she wishes while I keep everything documented. She nods and stacks cans while I mark pantry inventories and dates. The kitchen finds its rhythm under measured hands and well-placed labels. My jaw unclenches while quiet. Ordinary work restores breathable space. However, the phone vibrates twice with the same request through a different channel. Lauren forwards a screenshot of overdue notices and asks for immediate coverage. The notices show amounts without invoices, vendors, or confirmation numbers attached. I reply once with the template and the promise of quick review. The answer pivots to hurt and memory and the language of abandoned loyalty. I record the pivot, then paste the same boundary lines again concisely. The read receipt lands. No response follows. The thread cools into gray. I call the insurance agent and request a beneficiary review for clarity. The agent verifies identities and alerts me to an old rider on a policy. The rider lists shared coverage for a vehicle I no longer help maintain. I request removal and receive forms to sign digitally within the hour. I sign carefully and save the confirmation PDF into the locked folder. And I cancel the backup fuel card that never tracked receipts reliably. A voicemail arrives from Dane, describing emergencies with a tone trying for charm. He implies swift action would prove loyalty and leadership inside this family. He suggests delay could be seen as cold and possibly unforgivable. I transcribe the message word for word and attach it to the file. I do not return the call. I let the folder hold the weight. However, bitterness sloshes when I remember the jokes at my expense last month. I push the memory aside and choose a steadier frame with evidence. The screen lights with a calendar invite proposing an evening meet at our house. The timing overlaps Ellen's volunteer shift at the church hall across town. I decline and counter with a public diner booth tomorrow morning at 9. The diner feels neutral, camera-lit, and inconvenient for shouting or spectacle. I add that documents bring decisions. Emotions alone bring more waiting. I feel the heaviness ease when the invite remains unanswered and visible. And I look around our living room and see small terrain reclaimed intentionally. The table stands clear of unpaid envelopes that used to wander weekly. The door code changed. The hidden key moved. The garage remote retired. The freezer list holds 3 dinners. The pantry labels stop duplicates. The folder sits locked. The packet thickens. The consultations are scheduled. However, small victories draw attention like porch lights in bug season. At dusk, a car rolls slow past our driveway, then again 10 minutes later. The plate sits just beyond my camera's comfort, but not beyond memory. I log the time and route and notify non-emergency per their earlier advice. The operator thanks me and adds the note to yesterday's incident record. I close the blinds one notch and keep the lamp lit near the couch. My breathing stays even. The house remains tidy. The list shrinks sensibly. Ellen leaves for her shift and squeezes my shoulder with a practiced kindness. I show her the locked drawer and the printed packet and the schedule. She nods and steps into her shoes, then exits into cool evening air. I sit again at the bench and review the invoices and the smear. The facts align into a shape that looks like choice, not mistake. I feel the old urge to soften and explain until everyone smiles again. I let the urge pass unspent. I choose structure over appeasement tonight. And I place the flip-open pocket watch on the bench and open it slowly. The seconds slide along the dial like footsteps toward a guarded line. I look at the hands and decide that kindness requires terms, not leakage. The phone buzzes with a new message offering a home visit without warning. I reply with the diner booth time and the requirement of documents in hand. The reply accuses me of control while proposing access that bypasses agreements. I do not answer again. The folder answers for me now consistently. However, an email pings from the pet store with the promised invoice copy. The signature bitmap enlarges poorly, but shows familiar speed across the curve. I slide it behind the incident report and breathe through the last of anger. The facts hold. The case stands. The rest belongs to daylight and witnesses. Night gathers around the windows. The air filter hums its repeating line. The house remains mine by work, by planning, and by legal titles. I lock the front door, test the deadbolt, and turn off porch lights. Ellen's shift runs late. My texts confirm arrival and the quiet sanctuary there. I sit in the living room and let the day drain into order. And I understand a quiet cost arriving with these first firm wins. The thread has cooled into silence that reads as strategy, not surrender. A pushback gathers somewhere offstage, patient and hungry for spectacle. The day opens with thin sun and a calendar I redrew last night. I sort the packet on the kitchen table and count staples like breaths. Numbers behave when people will not. Structure steadies a room faster than talk. The consultation email sits printed on top, followed by receipts and incident forms, and the bank's confirmation pages ride beneath like armor plates with tidy captions. Ellen moves quietly through the house and leaves for an early errand. I keep the door locked, the porch swept, and the entry clear of clutter. The phone shows no reply to my written terms or my neutral counteroffers. However, the silence carries intention. It arranges itself like a meeting I did not schedule. I answer by trimming more obligations that never returned outcomes or gratitude. The credit card portal loads. The authorized user page finally opens without delay. I remove an old profile and confirm revocation with a second-factor prompt. The screen flashes green. The log records time, device, and location automatically. And the account settings show no shared wallets or lingering permissions beyond household needs. I call the insurer and finish the rider removal with digital signatures in sequence. The agent recaps coverage and promises mailed confirmations within 5 business days. I record that phrase precisely and move on to the bank's fraud team. The supervisor follows through and emails a letter request number for device records. He cannot release specifics without process, but he confirms a token trail exists. However, that single sentence carries weight. It links purchase, device, and timing concretely. I add it to the packet and label the divider device evidence for counsel. The printer complains about paper. I load a fresh ream and continue. I scan the invoice with the smeared signature and enlarge it for clarity. The curve reads hurried and familiar. I write no accusation beside it. I prefer witness, not speculation. Proof walks farther than anger on any day. And the morning holds while I cut 3 discretionary drafts from the budget. Ellen texts that she will stop by the church hall and drop canned goods. I answer with a thumbs up and a short line about finishing paperwork. The house breathes evenly. The air filter hums at its patient frequency. I wipe the counters, label the freezer containers, and reset the hallway thermostat. However, vigilance outpaces routine when a car creeps by twice before noon. The plate sits just outside clean resolution. The shape sits inside memory. I log times, direction, speed, and the pause near the curb, the second pass. The non-emergency line thanks me and adds to yesterday's incident numbers. I close the blinds one notch and set the porch camera to alert tones. The phone buzzes with a bank text about a failed attempt at online access. The log shows a password reset request declined for missing verification steps. I forward the alert to the case email and add notes to my packet, and I change the email security keys, then test the recovery flow deliberately. Noon moves across the table. Light edges the folder like a measuring tool. I eat a small sandwich and drink water, and keep posture tall. My breath settles into a rhythm that resembles marching, but needs no cadence calls. Service taught me to stand still when provoked, and then act cleanly. However, provocation prefers spectacle, and spectacle prefers an audience at doors. A message arrives proposing a doorstep conversation at my convenience this afternoon. I reply once with the same conditions and the same public alternatives. The message returns with a picture of overdue notices stacked like poker chips. I request invoices, vendors, and account numbers again. Nothing more and nothing less. The thread goes dim, the typing bubble pulses, then vanishes into a practiced quiet. I review my summary page titled Household Access and Financial Terms again, and I underline the line about packages and animal control procedures gently. The mail arrives. I collect envelopes and discard the flyers without reading them. A plain card-sized envelope bears no return address and uses block printing. I hold it to the window and feel for thickness, then set it aside, untouched. The rule forbids mystery drops. I follow my own rule without exception now. I photograph the envelope, log time and condition, and place it in a bin. However, a shadow slides across the front window before I finish the entry. A car idles at the curb, engine low, windows dark, silhouettes still inside. The camera catches the plate this time and the slow roll to the driveway. I stay inside and call non-emergency, referencing the ongoing case and guidelines. The dispatcher keeps me on the line and asks if anyone exits the vehicle. No doors open. The engine continues. The headlights deepen the living room shadows, and the idling ends. The car moves forward, stops at the edge of our driveway. A rear window drops 2 inches. A small sleeve edge flashes, then rises. My chest tightens. My hands remain open. I breathe until the room returns. The car reverses a yard, pauses, then lurches forward again to the curb. The engine cuts. Doors stay closed. A long minute writes itself noisily inside my head. A neighbor walks a dog, glances over, and chooses the opposite side of the street. I note that detail because witnesses are ballast when stories tilt dangerously. However, the car finally drifts away, slow, theatrical, and hungry for reaction. The driveway stays empty except for a small padded mailer near the apron. I take a photograph from inside and wait for the patrol to arrive. The officers step onto the porch with calm faces and careful, everyday voices. They ask about contents. I state the rule and request their handling. The mailer goes into an evidence bag. The scene receives quiet administrative clicks. I sign their log and keep our copy, and thank them for the steady approach. And the officers remind me to document contact attempts, vehicle plates, and patterns. Ellen returns as the patrol car rolls off and sets groceries on the counter. She asks nothing and reads everything on my face in one long look. I say we will finish dinner early and keep phones near, not on. The house resumes normal volume. Our movements grow smaller, more deliberate, stronger. However, late afternoon brings a sharper blow than any shouted word could manage. The group thread blocks us without announcement. Past photos vanish like old addresses. A new post appears on a public feed with the word family over smiling faces. The timestamp matches the idling near our curb within 5 minutes either way. My lungs forget their job for 2 breaths, then report and resume responsibly. I sit at the table and place today's packet at the center like proof. I feel something inside tilt toward grief, then correct itself toward resolve. And I accept that losses arrive without speeches, sometimes on quiet tires and screens. The driveway holds the all is lost beat better than any staged argument today. It witnesses arrival, refusal, theater, and departure without voices crossing the threshold. It marks the ground where my patience ended and my planning hardened finally. I take a photograph of that bare concrete and file it with the others. However, duty remains. I forward the plate and the timing to the case addresses. I email counsel's office with the packet index and the new incident summaries. The receptionist replies with a court intake, "Time moved earlier by a day." The city office corridor will see us tomorrow instead of 2 days later. I stand and stretch and reset the kitchen like a small, purposeful ceremony. Ellen lights a candle because the room needs gentleness alongside steel. I check the garage latch, the back gate, and the side yard camera angles. And I lower the blinds to a uniform height, the simplest order I can impose. Evening closes in carefully and leaves us enough room to move and think. I make tea, wash the cutting board, and stack bowls in drying racks. My foot taps once, then stops. The room follows my stillness willingly. I write one line on the yellow pad and let the pen rest beside it. However, the pad now contains fewer pleas and more decisions with dates attached. The device letter number sits there, circled, waiting for the paper to arrive. The incident list reads like a map toward something firmer than frustration. The calendar block for the corridor glows brighter than anything else this week, and the house feels different after that recognition. Less cornered, more contained. I walk to the front door and look through the peephole at empty space. I picture the car returning and see my response unfolding with practiced calm. I feel the cost again and accept it, because safety climbs with structure always. The porch light clicks on by timer. The street settles into a soft suburban hush. A final email lands from the bank confirming the certified mailing was dispatched. I breathe and place that printout on top of the packet and close the folder. Just possible. I reach the diner booth 10 minutes early and choose the seat facing doors. The laminated menu shines under weak fluorescence. A camera winks above the pastry case. I set the packet on the table like a level placed on framing. The waitress pours coffee and leaves a receipt slip that doubles as time marker. And the room's clatter keeps my breath even and my heartbeat honest. Lauren and Dane arrive together and drift toward Swagger before their coats even settle. I raise a hand once, not greeting them, only anchoring the meeting's start. My notes face me. The incident numbers sit clipped and calm beside invoices. I outline the agenda silently on a napkin and number each line. The napkin reads terms, receipts, repayment schedule, household access, and future contact channels. However, they start with weathered grievances and suddenly urgent needs framed as moral imperatives. I hold my posture, drink warm coffee, and let momentum roll past me. My reply uses fewer words than their tactics deserve, and lands squarely. Help continues when behavior aligns with documents, not when pressure digests boundaries. I slide the pet store invoice forward and tap the date and amount. The signature smear matches photos I already filed, fast and telling under enlargement. The device letter request number follows, circled, dated, and labeled for formal counsel. And the bank descriptor chain sits beneath like a steel rail through fog. Dane leans without touching anything and performs boredom that smells like fear. Lauren pivots to history and memory and unpaid obligations that supposedly stretch backward. I keep my voice level and state what transfers happened, documented and dated. The waitress refreshes coffee and watches our hands more than our eyes. I place a single-page template between us and tap the boxes gently. It requires invoices, vendor contacts, account numbers, and realistic dates for repayment. They offer indignation as collateral. I leave the template unmoved and patient. However, indignation curdles when it meets paper that refuses to absorb guilt. I pull the household access and financial terms summary into the light. The lines read, "No access codes, no surprise visits, no unannounced packages accepted." The final line explains the animal control protocol for any suspicious deliveries. Their shoulders shift before their mouths do. The theater stalls when facts arrive. I breathe deeper and state the only sentence that ever needed saying. Dignity in this house is not negotiable. The room's clatter returns, louder for a heartbeat, then smooths back down. I slide the pen across and point to the signatures and dates section. Lauren studies the pen like it might sting, and then looks away. Dane scans the invoice again and calculates angles that keep shrinking. And I let the silence do a portion of work I used to do myself. The waitress returns with the check and sets it carefully between our mugs. I pay before conclusions arrive because lines matter, and timing speaks loudly. They ask for time that used to mean tomorrow, and then meant never. I grant 1 week for documents and schedules. Nothing more, nothing less. However, time limits bite only when teeth are backed by an actual jaw. I stand, pocket the receipt, and carry the packet like something finished. The diner door chimes. The street air feels cleaner than the coffee smelled. I walk 2 blocks to the city office corridor and breathe its fluorescent chill. The clerk's window sits halfway down, past framed notices and a dusty ficus. I present the packet, the incident numbers, and the annotated timeline without commentary. The clerk reads like a metronome, and then calls a supervisor from behind. The supervisor's questions run practical, short, and stubbornly focused on verifiable points. He notes the delivery, the idling car, the online access attempt, and the smear. And he asks about prior patterns of pressure around money and access inside family. I answer briefly and supply dates, documents, and the diner napkin agenda. He accepts the filing, assigns a case number, and schedules a quick hearing. The date lands within days, not weeks, and clicks into my calendar block. I step aside and email counsel the confirmation and a list of attachments. However, righteous heat still climbs my chest, so I direct it into practical tasks. I walk to the credit union across the square and request new debit cards. The teller verifies identity and prints temporary numbers while shredding the old. I secure a new safe deposit box and move critical documents into storage. The brass key warms my palm and cools quickly when the vault shuts. I call the bank fraud line and add the corridor case number to the file. The supervisor attaches it and flags any access attempts for immediate review, and the portal shows 2 fresh declines for password resets within the hour. I push a short note to the neighborhood watch app about the idling sedan. The plate appears there twice with other slow rolls near mailboxes and driveways. I attach the clip and thank the neighbor who captured a clearer angle earlier. The street outside brightens as clouds thin. I match my stride to crosswalks. Ellen texts that she finished her errand and will meet me at home. I answer with a simple thumbs up and a route that avoids theatrical encounters. We reconvene in the kitchen and stack paperwork, like bricks on a sill. I brief her on the diner, the corridor filing, and the bank confirmations. She nods once and returns a steady look that feels like ballast. However, the group thread explodes into accusations that skip reality and chase sympathy. The posts invert cause and effect and frame structure as punishment for love. I do not engage online because screens reward spectacle and erode memory. I draft a single email stating the new case number and contact channel. I request that all future communication follow that lane or stay unanswered. And I print the email for the packet because paper endures longer than feeds. Or late afternoon brings a knock I do not answer, then a voicemail I keep. The message performs outrage about police and courts and alleged humiliation. I transcribe it, tag the time, and save the audio into the folder. The handset cools against my ear while my breath finishes its recovery. I sit at the workshop bench and open the fire-safe drawer deliberately. The folder slides into place beside titles, policies, and the freezer inventory. I check hinges, close the cabinet, and let the lock kiss its strike plate. However, the day still holds its hardest beat, so I square my shoulders. I call the insurer's Special Investigations Unit and request usage histories. The agent explains the process and offers a recorded statement slot tomorrow. I accept and set reminders that prevent overlap with the corridor appointment. I call the pet store again and request an affidavit verifying purchase details. The manager agrees to prepare one if served with a narrow, proper request. Counsel emails a template within the hour. I forward it without delay, and the rhythm of steps to receive sworn paperwork steadies my heartbeat again. The porch camera pings and reveals a flyer shoved under the mat. I photograph it and add it to the file as a note on contact attempts. The flyer's handwriting matches a post caption that misquotes my boundaries. I do not correct it. I let the file maintain the only correct story. Evening leans toward us. The kitchen fills with the smell of onions and thyme. I chop, stir, and clean as I go, because that is our rhythm. My mind replays the diner once and then stores it cleanly by label. The sentence I delivered sits there like a keystone under quiet weight. However, justice is not victory if it breeds more cruelty inside the house. I make space for grief without giving it control of the hinges. I write 4 letters for tomorrow: bank, insurer, council, and neighborhood captain. I address them by hand, because pen pressure slows my thinking responsibly. The mailbox receives them in a neat fan and shuts with a firm sound. And the twilight carries our street into a calmer version of itself again. After dinner, we walk the block and greet neighbors without oversharing our storm. The air feels cooler than the forecast predicted, which favors better sleep. I test the side gate and the garage latch and the front deadbolt. The motion lights fire when I step and drift away when I pass. I place the phone on the counter and set the ringer to medium. However, a text arrives from Lauren asking for a last-minute evening drop-in. The words carry urgency and apology braided together in familiar presentation. I reply with tomorrow's corridor schedule and the written channel requirement. The typing bubble appears, then surrenders, leaving a pale read receipt behind. I choose not to pace. I sit and sharpen a pencil for tomorrow's notes. I draft questions for the hearing that stick to facts and relief requested. I ask for distance orders that keep doors calm and unremarkable. I ask for a communication plan that removes sudden visits from the menu. And I ask for terms that require documentation before money crosses any line. The pencil shavings fall into my palm and then into the trash quietly. I check the calendar once more and set alarms that do not rely on hope. The night sits down earlier than usual and leaves enough quiet to think. But my body remembers standing watch more than it remembers sleeping deep. I count breaths to 16 and let the numbers level scattered edges. I picture our driveway empty and ordinary instead of theatrical and threatening. I picture our mailbox carrying letters instead of traps and small padded surprises. I picture Ellen sleeping without lifting her head at every car door. However, hope belongs to part 6, not to this immediate, righteous labor. Tonight belongs to decisions that harden into rails for tomorrow's train. I finish the last checklist and slide it under the folder in the safe. The house exhales. The ducts hum. The room returns to its proper size. I turn off the kitchen light and leave the hallway lamp at a low glow. And the day's weight finally shifts, just enough to show its outline clearly. The conflict sits mostly resolved on paper and in practice, not in feeling. A small aftermatter waits at the threshold, testing our new locks with old keys. Morning arrives without edge, and my breath matches the clock without effort. I open the safe, remove the packet, and review the corridor case number. The order reads clear, enforceable, and simple enough to follow daily. I print 2 copies, file one, and place the other by the phone. Ellen steps in with oatmeal and a half smile that lands steady. I thank her without speeches, then wash the bowl and wipe the counter. The house keeps its even hum. The air feels ordinary again, finally. I note 3 tasks on the yellow pad and set times beside each. First comes council, then bank confirmations, then a short walk after lunch. And the day begins to look like life rather than defense against crisis. I call council and confirm the trustee selection for the education fund. The firm recommends a manager with soft voice and hard rules for disbursements. I approve the framework and sign the final draft through the portal. The trust routes tuition, tutoring, and verified supplies away from careless hands. The language leaves no back doors for parents hungry to improvise. However, I add a small clause for school photos forwarded quarterly through council. Presence matters within reach, even when distance orders keep doors untouched. I send the notarized signature and log the confirmation with neat block numerals. The printer spits the receipt. I clip it under trust execution with date. Next, I call the bank, and here the mailed letter has arrived downtown. The device token chain exists. Access attempts will trigger immediate contact protocols. I thank the supervisor and add the delivery time to the running index. The folder gains another page. The arc gains another clean, practical hinge. Ellen asks if I want coffee on the porch before the walk. I nod once, grab the keys, and check the side gate latch. The porch boards feel firm where I tightened screws 2 nights ago. And the street looks like itself again. Quiet, a little scuffed, dependable. I set my chipped mug on the rail and stand where sun finds shoulders. The phone stays inside because calm likes fewer rings and smaller demands. A neighbor waves from the sidewalk and mentions a bake sale at the church hall. I promise a tray of cornbread and circle the time on the kitchen calendar. Service taught me to show up with work, not only with opinions. The habit translates cleanly here. Hands help where speeches only echo. I step back inside and draft a short note for our daughter through counsel. The message states compliance, distances, and the allowed channel for school updates. It lists check-in windows that fit our capacity and the court's boundaries. The tone stays respectful and exact. Nothing more, nothing less than needed. However, I add one final line about returning keys to a sealed envelope. Compliance begins with doors and ends with screens. Both deserve careful locks. I send the note and file the sent copy for the ongoing ledger. The kitchen timer dings for nothing specific and reminds me to breathe. I lace my shoes and choose a simple loop past the high school bleachers. The bleachers sit empty at noon, silver and stubborn against a wide sky. I stretch calves against the bottom rail and count to 20 with even breath. A whistle blows from far fields. A mower passes. A bus sighs near the curb. I walk the track once and remember formation runs done without flourish. The memory stays brief and useful, a reminder about pacing and finish lines. And I return home with muscles warm and the afternoon ready for quiet work. Ellen folds clean towels. I fold trust receipts and tuck them into sleeves. The safe clicks shut. The pocketed key rests solid against my palm. I prep cornbread batter and let the skillet heat until surface shimmers. The house smells like corn and butter. Normal can be its own medicine. A soft knock comes mid-afternoon and holds longer than a casual neighbor tap. The camera shows a delivery driver with an envelope and a return receipt. I open the door, sign, and step back while he leaves the porch. The envelope contains 2 school drawings mailed from the counselor's office. Crayons render a mailbox and a sun, and 2 stick grandparents. I sit, steady my hands, and let the relief rise without spilling. However, I do not call or text. I honor the channel that delivered safely. I photograph each drawing and write the receipt number on a small label. The labels go on the page titled School Updates, not Family Threads. The difference matters. The calm depends on honoring differences that protect value. I email counsel a brief thank you and confirm quarterly routing remains scheduled. The reply arrives with a neutral signature and a checklist for next month. I print it and add it to the calendar pocket on the fridge door. Ellen sets 2 slices of cornbread on a plate and passes me one. We eat without commentary, letting butter say the part that needs warmth. I sweep the porch while the skillet cools and the breeze turns gentler. The street carries laughter from a backyard grill and a bicycle chain clicking. I oil the hinge on the screen door and test the swing once, and I hear a car stop across the street and idle at modest volume. The camera shows our daughter stepping out and standing by the passenger door. She looks down the block, then across at our house, then at her shoes. She keeps one hand inside her jacket pocket and the other by her side. She holds no packages. She crosses no lines. She watches the porch carefully. However, the order asks for distance, so I stay inside the threshold and breathe. I hold the door with 2 fingers and keep my posture square and quiet. Ellen steps out of frame and waits near the hallway table for safety. Our daughter looks toward the porch and lifts an envelope from her pocket. She places it on the curb near the mailbox and steps back to her car. She says nothing aloud that I can hear. Her shoulders drop half an inch. I wait. She returns to the driver's seat without starting the engine immediately. A minute passes with no gestures, no theater, no bait for argument. And then the car pulls away at a lawful crawl and turns at the corner. I walk to the mailbox after the engine fades and check the envelope. Counsel's stamp seals the flap. A second page inside lists school supplies. The note requests no cash, only a receipt uploaded after purchase is delivered. I feel a precise gratitude for process that protects everyone from performance. I email council and confirm that we will fulfill the list this weekend. I add a question about pickup at the church hall to avoid porch contact. The reply approves the plan and confirms a volunteer handoff at the north door. I breathe deeper, soften my jaw, and mark Saturday on the yellow pad. I add quantities beside each item and a checkbox for receipts and photos. The pocket watch returns to my palm while I stand at the entry table. The hinge opens with that clean whisper that steadied me on darker mornings. I set the watch on the porch rail where sun warms the lid briefly. However, I do not turn the symbol into a speech or a signal to anyone. I use it to anchor my own rhythm while the neighborhood settles into dinner. Ellen steps beside me and rests a hand on my shoulder lightly. We stand without words and watch a child practice jump rope by the hydrant. The rope catches twice and then finds a cadence that lasts 6 clean swings. I nod, grateful for patterns that return when pressure lifts its boot. I take the supply list to the desk and build the purchase plan. The plan splits items into 2 stores and avoids crowded aisles tomorrow morning. I print the route and place it under the car keys for an early start. And I email a short note to the neighborhood captain thanking them for vigilance. The captain replies with a quick acknowledgement and a reminder about camera maintenance. I add that to the weekend list because prevention likes companionship with routine. Evening opens the windows to cooler air and a sound of sprinklers. I prep a simple dinner, then set 2 bowls and pour cold water. We eat and clear the table and leave the kitchen as neat as a mind. I sit at the desk and draft a new page titled Future Check-ins. The page lists the quarterly photos, the school supply handoffs, and the trust audit. It sets dates for reviews and includes the council email for any adjustments. However, I set boundaries around holidays, stating times we will be away without notice. Peace requires space. Calendars defend space better than explanations under pressure. I print the page and tape a copy inside the cabinet above the phone. I hold still and notice how quiet Carrie's now without feeling like exile. I sharpen a pencil for tomorrow and place it beside the pocket watch again. The watch cools under my thumb. The lid reflects the porch light faintly. I think of the driveway on the worst afternoon and accept its lesson. We survived by refusing spectacle and choosing paper that outlasts shouting. I sign a thank you card to the clerk, who processed our filing promptly. Ellen adds a short line about kindness being easier to keep than find. I stamp the envelope and place it with tomorrow's outgoing mail stack, and I sit one last time with the pad and list the day's completions concisely. Council confirmed trust. Bank confirmed device letter. School drawings arrived safely. Porch stayed calm. The list looks like a life again, not a barricade designed overnight. I switch off the lamp and leave the hallway line of night lights glowing. The house rests in its bones. The ducts continue their muted, faithful exchange. I sleep early and wake once to wind the watch with practiced patience. Morning will bring receipts, photos, and a quiet handoff at the church hall. Hope fits inside plans like that, modest and measurable and respectful. Gratitude means protecting what is good and refusing what breaks it repeatedly. Forgiveness can hold a door for change, but it does not hand over the keys.